Excellent. All right. Bear with me for another minute, if you would. And this one. Okay. Right, ladies and gentlemen, an extended Louis B. Free radio show, Brain Food from the Heartland. See, I always want to say this morning because this afternoon we're going long because I have a very, very, very special guest with me. I've got Rick Levy. Rick, I'm so delighted that you scheduled with me.
Hey, it's great. No, it's great. We're coming to your neck of the woods in a few weeks
Yeah,
with the
yeah,
box tops,
January
the
6th.
Buckinghams, and the association.
How
So it's a
wonderful.
great way to start the year, right?
Yeah, it brings back a lot of just when I hear the names of the bands, all of a sudden you get flooded with the songs, you start singing them,
Yeah,
remembering them.
that's it. I'm still amazed that the amount of enthusiasm, the amount of people that come out,
Yeah,
the acts. Well, of course, the thing is, the songs were also great. I mean,
writing.
week after week, great songs came out. And I mean, I've been very fortunate. I've been with the Box Tops for quite some time. I'm not one of the original guys. They were from Memphis originally, and I think you'll be doing an interview with one of the Box Tops guys soon. Um,
All right.
but playing the letter. Well, gosh, every high school garage band played the letter.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
now I'm playing with Gary Talley and Bill Cunningham, who were the founding members of the Box Tops.
Bill's coming on. Yeah.
Yeah, and but I was Peter Noon's band leader for 3 years with Herman's Hermits.
Yeah. I want to get into, again, your book. I love the book.
Well, thank you.
High
I
in the
guess
mid
that's what we're
60s.
talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. High in the mid 60s. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I want to, how to have a fabulous life in music without being famous, your memoir, Rick Levy, and ricklevy.com, your website. We've got those links up. Take me back. You were talking about, and you write about your youth before we
Well,
get to Peter Noon, before we get to that.
yeah, way before. I was born and raised in Allentown, PA, so not that far from you guys. And as I wrote in the book, my early childhood was kind of a blur. I mean, I just don't remember much about it, probably because it was fairly boring, middle class, upbringing. But then the guy who's no longer with us, but he's always with me. I keep his picture literally right next to my bed. He was my dad's roommate in college, but I called him Uncle Elliot. He was in the record business in New York, and he would bring me albums and all kinds of stuff. And when he brought me the first Elvis Presley album, I was 6, maybe 7. It was like things went from black and white to Technicolor. I remember making little sideburns out of cardboard and putting them on,
Yeah.
scotch taping them to my, it's why I love that Elvis movie that was out this summer. It was just
I haven't seen it, but
man,
I hear wonderful things about it.
It is just, it's just brilliant. And
forgive me for interrupting you. It's interesting to me how many young people like Elvis. I had a young lady that had to be young to me in her 30s, and she said, "Oh, you got to see the movie. I love Elvis." You love
he's
Elvis.
going to gain a whole new audience from this.
Yeah.
And it's because and that's going to start, in my opinion, it's going to start another whole renaissance of the 50s and 60s music. Because if you get to Elvis and start digging those roots and the black roots and the combination of the black and white, well, that's where rock and roll came from. And that's going to lead people to listen to 50s and 60s music. But anyway, I started playing folk songs with my sister. She was 3 years older. So we did little house parties and stuff. And then, like everybody else my age, I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan.
Yeah.
And 3 or 4 weeks later, had the first beginnings of a band. So that would have been 64. By 65, the Limits, which a couple of guys have passed away, but still my best friends in the world. That's where I learned. That's where I really, knew that this is what I wanted to do. And I love the business part of it too. I was a kid, but I wanted to manage. I wanted to learn publishing. I wanted to learn royalties. I wanted to learn all this stuff, and I did. And we played all the time back then, frat parties. swim parties, at high school football games, outlets that kids don't have now for live music. I mean, I'm sure out where you are, I mean, we had a bunch of like teen nightclubs, under 21 nightclubs,
Yeah,
which was
that's
just
interesting. Yeah.
fantastic. And great, every city had great bands in it. And then you'd get some of the quote name bands coming into your city. I remember the Box Tops came downtown. Yeah, I remember Felix Cavalier, the Rascals, the Left Bank. They all came through. So I was pretty well prepared to to do what I wanted to do. Yeah, and I chronicle it a little bit deeper in the book, some of the highs and the lows, and
High in the mid 60s, your book.
yeah. And and that title obviously has a bunch of different meanings, but it was the highest time in my life in many, many ways. First love, first music, first record contract, first rejection, first failure in the music business. But it's not just my story, it's most bands' story, going through that.
That's the process of writing it. What was that like?
Well, that's interesting because I never intended to write it. I started writing a journal when I was with Peter Noon with Herman's Hermits for 3 years. In '99, Peter and I had been friends for a while, and I had played, backed him up on a number of gigs. But he'd asked me to put a band together for him. He wanted to go back to the very, very early basic Hermit sound, real jangly, real stripped down.
Yeah.
And I knew just the guys. As it turned out, it was all guys from Allentown, believe it or not.
Wow.
And it was really fun. And Peter is still an icon. And we were working 100 shows a year, maybe a few more. So we were always on airplanes. And I started just writing a diary, because I wanted to, just like you asked, I wanted to find out what is it that makes me love this so much that, that I'm still doing it. Now, I was 20 years younger when I started the journal. It didn't get published for about 15, 16 years after that. But it still holds true. Certain things, the traveling is not as much fun just physically, but the playing is like, people who come to the Robbins Theater on January 6th are going to see the fun from us and the Buckinghams and the association, So I started writing this journal, and it was like, I was discovering who I was, and I really had never dug that deep into my own life. And I showed it to some people, and the consensus was, man, you ought to put this into a book. This would be really cool. Well, it took a long time. It didn't get published till 2018. I had an agent. We had a lot of rejections, just like the record business, and out of the blue, somebody suggests this publisher in North Carolina, because I didn't want to self-publish it. I didn't want it to be a vanity project. I thought if it's good enough, I should be able to get it published, And this guy really, his main thing in his publishing company is science fiction, but he's a big 60s fan of music. And he loved, his name is David Wilson, Crossroad Press. He loved the manuscript, but he said, you got to get it edited. It was like having a demo tape that you got to get polished to put a record out. It's, the comparison is exactly the same. And I'm thinking, oh, well, where do I get an editor? It's like saying, where do I get an engineer or a producer to tune up the record? Turns out a gal from back home in Pennsylvania, had become an editor, and we were great friends. And she said, she read it and she said, I'll edit it for you for nothing, So she edited, put it in good shape. We got photographs that we wanted in it. Another friend of mine did the cover, which is really
I
cool.
love the color. I love the
Yeah,
color.
and it's got a picture of me in about 1968 or 9, and a picture of me, in 2018.
With that Gibson SG.
Yeah. And the bottom is a Dan Electro, which is actually what I play with the box tops.
Yeah.
Mainly, well, they sound great, but they're also really lightweight guitars to travel around.
I remember, and you just brought back a memory when you said Dan Electro. And I can't always trust my recall, especially these days. But if I remember reading about the Dan Electro, the original ones that they used for the pickups, like lipstick.
They're called lipstick
right?
pickups.
Okay.
They're called the lipstick pickup. And I believe the originals were made that they sliced the lipstick thing in half.
Yeah.
And that covered that covered the wiring.
I hadn't thought about that for many, many decades.
Yeah, and they were actually licensed by Sears. And in the old days,
Silvertone. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
Silvertone. Sears made a case that actually had a little amplifier built in the case that you could stand up and play. So it was very, very exciting times. And we just lost one of the Limits about 2 weeks ago. Chris Jones passed away. But we have done Limits reunions every few years. I'll fly back up to Allentown because I live in St. Augustine, Florida. Wanted to get out of that cold weather. But we'll do a Limits reunion up in Allentown, and there'll be 300-400 people that come out to it. It's wonderful. Great. It's wonderful.
How does that feel when you're playing today? Is there obviously a difference because of time, et cetera, et cetera? What does that feel to have all those people cheering for you? I've often wondered,
it is great. I mean, it's of course there's an ego level of involvement. People are loving what you do.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time. I was having one of the real long head sessions with my son, who's a very well-known special effects makeup artist, very spiritual young man, as I am. And it took me so many years to realize that what I do makes people happy. I mean, I just never quite grasped that. And you're in the moment playing, and people are cheering and applauding, and that's all great and good, and then you go on to the next city and stuff like that. But there's that thing of stopping, and just saying, wow, people are forgetting their troubles for a while.
Yeah.
They're forgetting what's going on politically in the world, economically, and their health problems and our health problems and stuff. And everybody's just having a good time.
When you say that, Rick Levy, I've got to tell you that I don't know how many years ago it kind of dawned on me, if you will. I don't know why I didn't prior to, but it's the value of what you do, the value of that type of entertainment, especially live entertainment. You can't even quantify, can't even overstate it, because like you say, we need to be kinder to each other and more understand. Everybody's got something going on, a medical diagnosis, a death in the family, the dog died, financial issues. Everybody's got something. And for that time when you're playing that's all gone. We're able to.
Yeah. And for me, especially because I've always been, especially since I started my, what I basically specialized in, and that's touring with these 60s acts. And not only being, usually the band leader, guitar player, but also being the manager in terms of, dealing with the agency, dealing with the promoter, getting the flights, getting the hotels, taxes, payroll. So when I finally get to put my guitar on and play, for whether it's half hour, 45 minutes, hour and a half, whatever the show is, I can just zone everything else out and have fun. It's still great fun for us, and again, I think that's what makes this 60s era thing so special. I got somebody knocking on my door. I got someone knocking at my door. Can I go check that?
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking with Rick Levy. His book, High in the Mid-60s, How to Have a Fabulous Life in Music Without Being Famous, a memoir by my guest, Rick Levy, ricklevy.com. It's RICKLEVY.com for more information, and the VY.com. We'll talk with him again January 6th at Rollins.
That was my neighbor. That was my neighbor bringing me Christmas cookies.
Doggy. Oh, the doggy's coming in.
There she is.
Now listeners are going to freak out. Oh, what a beautiful doggy. Oh,
This is
wait.
Maddie.
This is so unprofessional of me.
I know, isn't it?
I've got to take a picture of you and the dog. What's the doggy's name?
Maddie.
Oh.
Maddie's a rescue.
Oh, Maddie, thank you for posing so beautifully.
Didn't she pose beautifully? What a good girl.
She did. She's you're getting kisses from Maddie. I'm glad Maddie came in.
We rescued each other. Let's put it that way.
Isn't that the case with?
Oh my God, yeah.
You know,
oh my God, yeah.
We rescue them, and they rescue us. And people
that was my neighbor bringing me some Christmas.
Really was your neighbor? Okay, I thought you meant the dog.
No, it was literally my neighbor. But yeah, I live in a condo. I have a condo. I'm very fortunate.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, we used to go to Atlantic City, you know, and I do write about. I've been rereading my book since I know we were going to do this, and it is a good read. I'm liking it. But
it's a wonderful read.
I remember,
I
remembered that experience of being in Atlantic City, watching my mom and dad frolic in the ocean at night, and I always wanted to live by the beach. And I had set like, okay, by 50, I'm going to be able to do this financially and everything. Well, I made it by 48, to St. Augustine, Florida. And it's just a paradise down here, and in February, actually, we have two Florida dates with the Box Tops and the Buckinghams. We're going to Vero Beach and then down to Fort Lauderdale. So that'll be fun, and that's the other thing, all the acts, we're all friends with each other,
that's interesting.
It's a real
That's not always the case, I'm sure.
No, well, back in the day, you're friends, but you're competing for the charts and all that kind of stuff. But now it's like, usually there'll be certain guys in each group that just congregate to each other, and you become good friends, and it's just really nice, because it is like and you bring the fans into that too, and they become friends because they come to shows, they follow you. If you're going to be on like one of the big 60s cruises, there's going to be thousands of them there that, and many of them you've seen many times, and and they know your situation. I mean, when we did this past March, we did the big Flower Power cruise, which is the biggest 60s cruise. It goes out, every year, and they'll have like 16 or 18 bands on in a week. I mean, it's a big cruise, but everybody knew I was dealing with this autoimmune situation, and everybody was trying to help me. Can we get you something? And it's like, it just, sometimes it gets really emotional. I mean, it's just a very powerful, and that's when it started to hit me that no, I never personally had to hit records. But for the last 40 years, I've been keeping people on the road who had those hits, as a manager, as a booker, as a band leader. So that's a great, and then therefore that music can still be played. So it's nice.
And love. Yeah. Rick Levy, when you were saying earlier, and I was asking you about coming out in front of an audience, et cetera, what is that like? And you said some ego involved. Of course, I literally cannot imagine what it would be like. I've got my haters, so I certainly know what the haters are like, but to walk out on stage and have people screaming for you.
Well,
that's got to be an interesting, I mean, to keep, and it seems to me, very honestly, that you've really got your ego in check, yet I could see how that could.
Well, it is exciting. Now, it's not like, Peter Noon has the great line. He said, "The ladies still throw underwear. It's just so much bigger now." You know,
I love that. I love that so
yeah.
much bigger.
But you do walk out on stage, ladies and gentlemen, Memphis Music Hall of Fame artist, the Box Tops, and yeah, it explodes into applaud before you've even played a note. And and then just imagine what that is for people like Elton or Paul McCartney or the Stones, of that stature. I mean, that's another whole level. But I sometimes think, like artists at that level, none of them need to perform at all. They certainly don't need money, yet they do it and they put every ounce of energy into it. Just look at Mick Jagger at 80 years old. I mean, it's inconceivable. So it's but it's great. I mean, and we like to watch, we did the Happy Together tour a few years ago. And we actually, this past summer, we filled in on some dates. And it's like, great. I mean, I love to see the Cowsills. Now, none of us were Cowsills fans back in the day.
Back then, I agree.
It was considered just corny stuff, but they're so good. That sibling harmony, the brothers and sisters, that, like the Bee Gees, and where you've got that certain Everleys, where you got the brother and sister singing thing. Wow. It's just like, oh my God, they sound great. So it's an interesting end of the business to be in.
When you think about again, playing and managing, and you said, attracted to the business end of it. I'm not going to ask you which you like more, because you like them both. Certainly.
I do.
Yeah. What is that like? You've really, not that as a musician, you don't have to really have it together, but you're coordinating tours, etc.
Well, here's the thing, Louis. I like doing that, but it was really a conscious decision as I got older that there's always going to be a better guitar player. There's always going to be a better singer. But if I could position myself to an artist that, hey, I can do the job on stage and I can do all this stuff off stage that you don't have to hire out to somebody that you don't know and probably get ripped off in the process. So, and for me, it really was, I was still living in Allentown, and I got Jay and the Techniques back on the road. They hadn't been on the road at all. And from there, it went to Freddie Cannon and Tommy Rowe and the
Freddie Boom Boom Cannon. I remember.
Yeah, Freddie Boom Boom. And, then the 3 years with Peter, then a long stretch with Tommy Rowe, probably on and off for 20 years with Tommy. And then with the Box Tops, we were friends for a long time. And then when Bill and Gary, after Alex Chilton died in 2010, there were no Box Tops. And then in 2015, we started talking because I said, guys, I still get calls for the Box Tops. They want to hear this music. And I've never worked, and I credit Bill and Gary for this. I've never worked so hard in putting a show together that honors the legacy of their music. Any artist, including Peter Noone, Tommy, and I love them all. They're all great. But Box Tops, we deconstructed everything and reconstructed every song. How to make it every part. So how could we present this? No, we didn't want to get an Alex Chilton sound alike. We wanted to present this the way we can present it. And boy, it's working great. It's working great.
And again, Robbins Theater, January 6th.
Yeah, it's called American Pop. It's a great show. It's usually, it's always Box Tops, Buckingham's, and then sometimes it's the Grassroots and sometimes it's the Association. Yeah. So on this one, it's the Association, and pretty.
If people haven't been to the Robbins Theater and seen the renovation, it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, I think I played it with Jay and the Techniques. This would have been like the late 80s, probably. So it's a different, I guess.
It's all renovated. Yeah, you'll love it. It's great, a grand old theater. I will say that.
That's cool.
Talk a little bit more about Peter Noone. Again, Herman's Hermits. And when I was reading your book, High in the Mid-60s, How to Have a Fabulous Life in Music Without Being Famous, Rick Levy's memoir, Rick Levy, Levy.com. I remembered seeing Herman's Hermits at local people know Stamble Auditorium, which is over 100 years old now. They just did some other renovation, I believe, almost 100 or 100. I shouldn't say that when I'm not sure. It's old. It's a very old theater. I remember seeing Herman's Hermits there when I was a kid.
Peter's amazing. He just turned 75.
Yeah, he
Sounds like he's 20. He really does. It's amazing. I don't know how he does it. You know?
That's fantastic. Again,
band is great. The guys are great in his band. You know, he's even elevated his status because he's got his own show on Sirius XM. You know, Peter's got his own radio show. His daughter's got a show on Sirius XM too, Natalie. It's a good show. So Peter, you know, guys like, you know, in our genre, you know, circle, you've got, you know, what I call the top of the top. You got your Beach Boys and not too many people are at the status of the Beach Boys. Then you got your Peter Noon and Tommy James, John Kay and Steppenwolf, you know, and then you've got that you know, that next level, which is most of us. That would be, you know, Box Office, Buckingham's, Grassroots, Cal Sills Association, Gary Puckett, you know, all great, all tons of hits, and all work with each other. You know, you know, and that's the nice thing. That's the really nice thing about it. So when audience comes to a show, no matter what the package is, they're getting a lot of hits. They're hearing a lot of top 40 hits, you know, and people laugh and say, well, top 40. Well, I always said it from the time I was a kid. And you know, it irks me greatly that, for example, Tommy Roe is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because he wrote and recorded more top 10 hits than any other American solo artist in the 60s. But I think because his hits were considered too poppy, too bubblegummy.
Yeah, but they were hits. I don't get about that nomination. I don't
understand it.
It seems like a popularity.
Maybe because Tommy always lived a normal life, a real gentleman, one of the most beautiful guys I've ever met. He and I are like family, and I try to get him out of retirement. He's still resisting. He's retired.
He says no.
But, you know, I would love to. I love playing his song. I mean, I personally think Dizzy is the perfect pop song. I just think it's, as a musician, the structure, everything about it is just perfect. You know, and so I keep bugging him. I keep emailing Tommy, come on, let's do a show. Let's do a show. He says, I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore. But, you know, you never say never, you know.
Yeah. Maybe someday he'll.
Yeah. He looks great. You know, he just turned 80. He's still a handsome man, still sings great. So who knows?
Isn't it funny when you get to our age group and you start to think, that's, you know, that's not that old. Or I'll see an obituary of somebody that died of 70 years old or 68 or 72.
Man, that's young.
Wow, it's your perspective totally changes.
Well, it's like, you know, we're none of us thought we'd be doing this. Nobody thought that it would, you know, that, you know, when this first wave of quote oldies came around, which was probably in the early 80s, you know, when the fans, you know, hit that's like now, you know, 80s and 90s music is the new oldies music, you know, because the fans are now 40 in their 40s. But I mean, I've never seen a more loyal bunch of fans than 50s and 60s fans. I've never seen it. You know, it's, you know, it confounds me, but it delights me at the same time.
Right. Oldies, it's all perspective. It's all where.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
exactly.
For us, that's
exactly. And
like
you know, people dress up at some of these concerts. They put on their bell bottoms and their tie dye stuff and like that, because everybody wants to remember it was you know, it wasn't a great. There was a lot of crap going on back then.
Of course.
You had Vietnam. You had the civil rights. It was probably more, you know, as tumultuous as now, maybe more. But this music elevated everybody out of it for a couple, 2 minutes and 30 seconds,
Yeah,
or
whatever.
or whatever it was. I mean, it's humbling. It's really humbling to be part of it. And
Again, to take yourself away from your troubles. And maybe young people, it was different when we were younger, what we perceived as troubles or did not perceive.
right,
As you get older, again, to take you back. That's what I love about it takes you back.
Well,
Right?
here's a perfect example. Now the letter was one of the Box Tops hit. The letter was one of the biggest songs of the Vietnam War era. Give me a ticket for an airplane. I ain't got time to. My baby wrote me a letter. Well, that was one of the anthems of the war, along with Riders in the Storm and one of the Hendrix songs. And we've played where, we're told ahead of time there's a reunion going on of a group of veterans. They came to see a show. Will you meet them? Of course, and here's guys our age, and they're crying, and it's like, I mean, how do you put a number on that? I mean, like I said, when you talk to Bill Cunningham, you'll get another whole perspective because he was there as an original member of the Box Tops when this was going on. So I'm a step removed from that. And I still get the goosebumps. So I can only imagine what he and Gary go through.
I'll bet you. And when you start saying about the letter and you started to say some of the, again, people my age or whatever, and even younger people, I start singing it in my head.
Yeah.
Folks, I won't sing it out loud. Nobody wants to hear me sing, Rick. Believe me, I love to sing. No one wants to hear me sing.
But, and then these songs end up in commercials and movies.
Yeah. Yes.
So kids know them. I mean, the letter was in the Minions movie. So it's like 5 and 6 years old, if we play like an outdoor festival.
The letters in the Minions movie?
Yeah. and then and it was also in it was in a bunch of them, but it was in what the heck was the name on Bad Times at El Royale. And then Quentin Tarantino just used one of our songs in his last one, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So these songs start reaching younger and younger people. And it's like, of course, our core audience is always going to be baby boomers, but we do a club or something. We'll see a group of 30 somethings, sometimes 20 somethings, we just love, because they'll listen to one song and then they say, well, who is this group? And then they'll want to discover them, whether it's us or the Grassroots or Peter Noon or whatever it is,
and then they dig more to learn more.
Then they want to dig a little deeper and find out. Yeah.
That's interesting. And again, how they use them in movies. I wasn't aware of some of that.
Oh, yeah.
I know they use older songs in movies, but not that I haven't seen the Quentin Tarantino movie.
Yeah. Quentin loves 60s stuff. Yeah. He used our stuff. He used a lot of Paul Revere and the Raiders, because he wants to have an accurate, if he's doing a 60s timepiece, he wants to have that accurate, music going on.
Yeah. What's the show? Shindig and Hullabaloo?
Shindig, Hullabaloo. Yeah, we were glued to all those. I mean, it's just, it's sometimes it overwhelms me that I've been doing this now I started on stage at 14. I just turned 73, so 59 years, and I hope I will do this until I cannot do it, or I feel that I can't do it well.
Yeah, that's because too many.
I felt I couldn't play guitar well.
Some people go too far, and when they
sing well. But I play locally. I keep sharp because I play at least twice a week. I have a duo in St. Augustine, and we play all 60 stuff. So I'm always on my most of the guys in the band are working when we're not out with the Box Tops, are working musically. Yeah.
What's that like doing the local gigs?
It's different. It's different. I have a ton of friends who've been following me for 15 years here. They come to every gig, and a matter of fact, a bunch of them, for example, are driving from St. Augustine to Vero Beach, which is like a 3-hour drive for the Box Tops gig, you know. So it's like, a part of it is like, you know, I'm beyond this, but the other part is it's all music.
Yeah.
It's all music, you know. And it's like, if I get in the head that I'm too big to do this, then I got to start reassessing things, you know. So it's, you know, it's fun. It's just a different level. I mean, it's not the same level of excitement. It's not the same level of, you know, preparation. Certainly not the same level of money, you know. Yeah, fortunately, when we go out on the road, we, you know, the pay is very good. But it's, you know, it's fun to do. I just played last night, as a matter of fact. So, you know, it was great, you know.
So what are some of the songs you play?
Well, we do, of course, we do the letter, but we're at the point in the letter now where I don't even sing it. The audience sings it. I just play guitar, and the whole audience sings the song. We do a lot of Dave Clark 5. We do a lot of Stones. We do a lot of one-hit wonders, like Boyce and Hart, Wonder What She's Doing Tonight. And we'll do Gordon Lightfoot, and we'll do Neil Diamond, you know, and then we may do Sinatra, you know. So it's just really, it's really wacky. It's pretty wacky, you know, and but it's good. It's fun. It's good fun.
If you don't mind, Rick, do you go in with a structured set list, or and sometimes do you deviate from that, or
locally or with the box?
Locally. No, locally.
Oh, we don't have a set list. Never had a set list ever. No, no.
Just the side.
If
of course, obviously,
if I'm permitted to, I have my
play.
I have my Dan Electro here, right here. So you know, we might start the evening with like
I'm plotzing.
We might start the evening with like Solomon Burke, you know. Everybody needs somebody, you know. So we might do that, and then we might go into a. You know, we might do kicks. We might do. We always do. Dave Clark.
Sure.
It's right that I should care about you. I almost always do a little Peter Noon. Can't you see? You know, so it's a 60s show, just on a much smaller level. That's all, you know. And of course we do the letter, you know. I mean, okay, but you know. Then I stop singing and the audience sings. So it's great. It's great. And the big shows with the Box Tops, when we do the letter, we can stop singing and the whole audience is singing with it. It's just like, you know, on the Happy Together tour, when they sing Happy Together, the whole damn house is singing Happy Together. I mean, that's the beauty. Everybody knows every word. It's crazy.
I'm thrilled that you played on my show. I love that. Thank you for that. Seriously.
I don't think I was in tune, but that's okay.
It's great. It was great.
Yeah.
That's got to be, again, a wonderful experience when everybody's singing the words to the song.
It is.
Everybody there knows I know the words. Like I say, when you say the letter, I start giving me. I'm not going to sing. Don't worry, folks. I won't.
You know,
and you start thinking. Yeah.
You know, I guess the things, you know, getting back to the book, the things that, you know, I took for granted, but people would say to me, like some of the people I got to write like a testimonial, if you will. You know, like one of them, I don't know if you know the name, Larry Klein. He was executive director for Dick Clark, you know, for forever. Yeah. And you know, he writes, if I may, he said,
please,
is one of those lucky people who has made his love his life and his vocation, and it shows in the way he performs and respects the artist and the music and he does it damn good. Well, that,
Beautiful.
that's that's all I ever wanted to do. I just wanted to do it well, or good, as he said. It's still important for me to do it properly. It's still important for the box tops to do what we do. I mean, we've taken this, then I'm sure Bill will elucidate more on it. But we've taken it to the point where we have a video montage for every song in our set, which it's a very Memphis, or it's a Memphis music lesson, the Box Top Show, because they came up during, Elvis and during the Stax and Sam and Dave and Otis Redding, and, they knew all these guys. I didn't know them, but they did. And we share that with the audience. It's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's got to be wonderful, wonderful. One of the things I want to talk about the book, your heartfelt dedication is beautiful.
Thank you. I just read that before we started this, and I read over it and I said, I really do mean every word of it.
Yeah, and you say heartfelt. Obvious. It's obvious when you read it that you mean it. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well,
about your mom.
Well, Mom was great. They're both gone now, but she and I were both Scorpios, and I was raised in a very middle-class Jewish upbringing in Allentown, very safe, very bland, but loving, very loving. And my dad was working his butt off, to become successful, which he was. So he wasn't around a lot, but there wasn't neglect or anything like that. But she was always my supporter. Yeah, she was always my supporter from the time I started music. Because it was always, well, that's good, but what are you going to do for a job? What are you going to do? And I ended up going to University of Pennsylvania. I got a great education, but we had a band there that was very close to being huge, a band called Wax. And that's in the book too. And but I think that upbringing instilled a lot of self-esteem in myself, a lot of belief in myself, because we took some hits early on. When you're 20 or 21 years old, and you have a big record deal, and then it falls flat on its face, a lot of people give up.
Yeah, understandably, they just don't want to feel that disappointment.
Yeah. And I was married twice, and we're great friends. It's just that the roads took different paths. I ended up being a single dad for my son's most formative years. So I raised him. My parents were around a lot at that time, which was great. They got to be the kind of parents that they couldn't be with me, which is often the case with grandparents.
Yes, isn't that interesting?
It's great. It's great. Yeah. And but I had learned from my upbringing, when I saw the talent and the interest my son had in the graphic arts and sculpture and special effects, I was 200% behind him. It was never, what are you going to do? Yeah. It was, how can I help you do this? I think maybe he had a little easier path, but he's far outshined me. Oh my God, he's just incredible.
Different. In fairness, and I respect what you're saying about your son. And I'm not being argumentative. Maybe I should just shut up.
No.
Rick Levy, outshined you, yet you supported him, and they're just different areas. I mean,
it was just different times. Our parents came out of World War II.
Yes,
so we all have, especially if you're Jewish, we all have family members, ancestral members who were gassed in the chambers. This is what my father came back from. So as I grew up, I understood their nature of, being insular to a degree. They weren't happy when I married out of faith, but they came around and all that kind of stuff. And But when my mom died, when my mom was dying, she died before my dad. She called each one of me, my sister, and then, our kids one by one. And I was the last to go in, maybe because she and I were the closest. And she just looked at me and she said, "You're right. It's all bullshit." That's what she said. It's all bullshit. I said, "Well, what do you mean, Mom?" She said, you did what you should do. You follow your heart. You do what you love to do." And it was like, well, of course I broke down, I was just a mess. But,
About what year? How long ago?
she passed in 2003.
And your dad?
2008. So 2003 was a major year for me, because that's when I left her. I had just left Herman's Hermits. I had just lost a dog. I lost my mom, but within 3 months after my mom's passing, I had put a 42 city tour together for Jay and the Techniques, Freddie Cannon, and Merrily Rush. So it's like, boom,
Freddie Boom Boom Cannon.
Boom, boom, just exploded, And so, yeah, so everything I say in that dedication was
beautiful.
And you know what? And I'm in touch with my first girlfriend from high school. We stay in touch too. So it's like, but I'm single. I'm not partnered with anybody. I've been
yet.
Yeah. You never know.
You don't know.
I have a very, I live by the beach. I love my life down here. But I never know what tomorrow is going to bring. I mean, I've got health issues. You've got health issues. We just wake up and try to do something productive.
When you, Rick, hang with me a couple more minutes. When you say that about the dog, and I have to tell you, I love that about you, because a lot of people don't understand, if they've never had
you can't understand,
furry or family member, they don't realize. And I've talked about this before on the show. I remember both my parents died from leukemia, and there's a lot of difficulties when people dying from cancer. I learned a lot from my father's death to kind of make sure that my mother didn't die in the same horrific way. Nonetheless, I remember when I was up on Lake Erie broadcasting, and we had taken in rescue rabbits. I've had dogs, cats, and
a
lot of rabbits over those couple of decades. There's your doggy.
There she is again.
I remember saying, I was really very depressed after one of the rabbits that came from a horrific background. She had a wonderful life with us, but died. And I remember saying on air, no filter between my brain and my mouth, I cried more when the rabbit died than I did when my mom died.
Much more.
And people, Rick, people were offended. They called it was to the point that they called the general manager of the station. And I explained, what I did is I tried to explain the best I could. My mother had cancer for years. She was dying.
Right.
Exactly. Of course, I miss her. I was glad. I miss her, of course, but I was glad that she was out of the pain and
suffering. And you had time to prepare for that.
Yes, and understood that it was different. It was different with the rabbit. So
I felt the same. This was the same proximity, and I realized it was a simple reason, because I was with that animal every day, and there's something.
And you loved each other. You love each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll give you an example. If I got into a relationship, if Maddie didn't like the girl, that girl ain't coming into my house.
That's right. I get that.
It's just that simple. But yeah, I mean, it's so many things, you think, oh, you've done this thing. And then, then in 2018, we get the call. They want to induct the Box Tops into the Memphis Music Hall of Fame. Now, again, I'm not an original member. I can only imagine, what Bill and Gary experienced in they had already lost Alex. They had already lost Danny, the original drummer. John was still around. He's since passed away. And they do this every year, the Memphis Music Hall of Fame. to me, it's more, I hate to say it, I think it's more authentic than the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Just the people they induct into it and the reasons. But that's neither here nor there.
I could go off on that. We were talking about that.
It was an amazing ceremony. Jerry Lee Lewis was still alive. It opens up with this. There's a guy named Jason Williams who's a nationally known Jerry Lee Lewis impersonator. So he's on the piano playing Great Balls of Fire. And 83 years old, Jerry Lee Lewis walks out and says, "Move over, kid." And he takes the piano. And the induction was fantastic. It happened to fall on my birthday. And I got a birthday kiss from Priscilla Presley, from Elvis's wife.
Oh, yeah.
So, sometimes, honest to God, I'm 70. Sometimes I pinch myself and I say, how did I get from this Jewish kid in Allentown, to having played all over the world, with people like, I played with Bo Diddley, from Bo to the Box Tops, to Tommy, and then sharing stages with James Brown, with the Temptations, with the OJ. It's like, it's not a unique story, but I think I put something together that, as I even said in the book, it's kind of a life journey, and it doesn't apply only to musicians. It's like, if you love something, just keep it could be being a friggin' accountant. It could be, being a vet, being whatever it is. Love what you do, or find something that you do love to do. And that doesn't have to be your job. It could be something else.
A passion. A passion.
I know a lot of great players, a million times better than me, who are successful doctors or whatever, and they play on the weekends for fun. They don't have to go through all the nonsense that we go through. I just wasn't cut out that way. I just knew that I wanted the life. I wanted to live this way. You
did, and you did. And you do. I should say,
I do, and yes, I know it sacrificed relationships and stuff, but that's just the way it was. That's just the way it was.
When you mentioned Bo Diddley, and when I read that book, I have to tell you, but again, a lot of what I read and a lot of what we talk about brings back a lot of memories for me. And I remember when my father bought me, and I can't remember what year, I've got to look it up, a super blues band with Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, and Bo Diddley.
Oh my God.
I remember that now. I wish I still had it, but I still remember that.
Bo was the nicest guy in the world. He actually only lived about an hour away from here. And we became friends, and I used to go out there, and he's not a big house. He's making barbecue in the yard, gold records laying all over the living room. It's like, and he was just the nicest guy in the world, and it was, it's nice to relate to people on that level, what's going on in your life, and I think there's some people that are naturally more open than others, and it's easier to get to that level. I know in the last few years, we played together tons of times, but just in the last few years, Carl Giammarisi, one of the founders of the Buckinghams, love their music. Talk about great pop music. Kind of a drag, and Mercy. But
see, then I started thinking about,
we've just become great, personal friends, and that's just a nice thing, and so you meet these guys on stage, and it's like a homecoming, it's like a homecoming event. Ron Dante's another one. Well, who really cared about the Archies? But then, I got to know Ron, and got to know, oh my God, his work as a producer, and wrote all these commercials, and hey, man, the Archies were no small potatoes. It was huge. So at some point, you kind of get rid of the,
what,
the prejudices we had about certain.
Oh, I see. Yeah, about certain. Well, back then when you were, when
you became an FM radio fan, you didn't listen to AM radio.
Yeah.
But they're both
a lot of people don't. And again, with we were talking about Shindig, Hullabaloo, etc., and the availability of music through AM, it's very different today because people, can stream, what the variety, YouTube.
Well, that's the thing. Kids today are listening to a very segmented style of music, just what they like that week. AM radio had everything from Jimi Hendrix to Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
In an hour, with Bobby Gentry thrown in, and then something really stupid, some novelty record. But we knew it all. We heard it all.
Hello, mother. Hello, father.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah. So we knew all that stuff, and it was like, Bill Cunningham told me, we were talking one night on the road, and he said back then the hallmark was, if you were, let's say you were a guitar player in a city on a Friday night, you could find a drummer, a bass player, and a keyboard player in that city that you'd never met, and you could play a night of music. You could play 4 sets of songs, because everybody in the country was playing the same songs. We were all playing Satisfaction, Hanky Panky, I Think We're Alone Now. We were all playing, Last Train to Clarksville. We were, and then bands would would start to specify. And they'd get into their own thing, like we did back with the Limits then. And it's interesting because I've licensed all our old Limits catalog to this company in California, and we've got this like cult following all over the world. It's fascinating. It's just fascinating.
What's that like for you? You got the cult following, you say, all over the world.
Because we get these statements and these things from Spotify and Apple, and we see like, a song, a thing we recorded in 1966, is being listened in Russia or in China. It's like, what the heck? We're not making any money off of it because streaming is so pathetic, but that's another topic for another day. But
the money, since I'd like to talk about that with you at some point, because again, how do you there's
how
do you
touring and merchandising, pure and simple. That's the income stream. You have to have millions and millions of streams to make, now the big artists do, again, the Taylor Swifts, Ed Sheeran, those people, they're streaming multi-millions, so they're making money. But if you think, boy, I got 100,000 streams, you think that's a lot, man, you can see a royalty check for like $700.
Yeah.
For 100,000.
I'm not I am laughing. It's like, really, after 100,000?
Because back in the day, if you had 100,000 live spins on radio, BMI or ASCAP, you were getting a pretty good paycheck. So I think it's really hurt the business. It's made it more democratic, in fact, in terms of anybody can put a record out. But that doesn't mean everybody should put a record out.
Yeah, I love that. Yes, certainly. We've all heard some of those, right?
The bar, there's so much that's it's just below even mediocre. You got a computer, you can put a beat, you can make the whole record in your bedroom. Great, good, end of sentence. But some of those catch on, and I guess it's cool that people can do it. But when
some people shouldn't be doing it.
You talk to these kids about, well, when are you going to like live in the van, get on the road, and
I'm not doing that.
Clubs all over the country, and they don't even know what you're talking about. Yeah. They don't even know what you're talking about. So I don't know that many of these acts of today will be around 10 years from now, let alone 50 years from now. Yeah. I mean, every band that we're on the road with is at least 50 years old, closer to 60 years old.
Yeah. That's
absolutely insane.
I look at my notes real quick. I remember the band's official 50th. In that, by the way, there was an interview, an article. This is from October 2012, and they were talking about how booking things, etc. And for the band's 50th anniversary, it doesn't come until 2015, but it marks your 50th year in the music industry, and now we're way beyond that.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean,
going strong.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hopefully, I mean, we'll go till we can't go. I think everybody in our group is in pretty good health, and I see guys on the road that look good and are taking care of themselves.
Yeah.
And
There's still realities with age. We all know that.
yeah, and
Different people, different times.
yeah. I mean, yeah, a lot of people have passed, and you get an email that somebody can't do it anymore, and but that's that's the reality. That's the
That
reality.
is the reality.
But
As
yeah,
long as
I
you
mean,
can, you can and touch so many lives you've touched so many lives.
yeah, I know, and it sometimes overwhelms me when I think about it, and um,
We can't imagine. We
you know,
can't imagine all the lives that you've touched.
yeah, just as a player, and we all have, um, and going out there and schlepping around and doing it, and I'm also a potter, and I put my stuff up on Facebook, and almost every piece is sold to a music fan that knows me or has
Yeah.
come to know me.
Well,
So
yeah,
so
and
they're
I
getting
get
it.
that. They want to,
They're getting a unique piece of my other art, which is
they've got the pottery and
great.
they say, know who did this? And then
Which is great, and
bragging rights.
it's become another passion for me, and I just feel really lucky. Am I glad that I got this stupid leg nerve situation? No, I'm not, but I live with it. You live with it, you
Your
deal with
options, right?
it.
I mean,
And
that's
people are there to help you when you need a little bit of help, and yeah, I mean, I'm just glad that the book is still out there and still selling a few copies. I mean, it's I had these visions that somebody like Tom Cruise or Billy Bob Thornton would read it and want to make a movie out of it, but that was almost already done with Almost Famous, that great movie. So
and it would make a wonderful
it
film.
would make a good
Yeah,
movie.
it would
Yeah, I
make
don't
a
know who would
great
play us, but we could figure that out later. But
yeah. Yeah, it
it's
would make a great movie. And you'll love the book, folks. High in the Mid-60s, How to Have a Fabulous Life in Music Without Being Famous. Rick Levy's memoir, ricklevy.com.
yeah, they can get it. It's ricklevy.com, RICKLEVY. And it's out in print, it's out in digital and audio too, which I didn't read it. I wish I would have, but they got a really good DJ to read the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was great. His voice was like, whoa, So, but I thank the publishers, because I mean, it's neat when somebody else has some faith in you besides yourself, which is pretty cool. And you know, and that's the neat thing. It's out there as long as people want it,
Yeah.
you know.
It's
But
wonderful read. Make a wonderful gift also.
yeah, and as a matter of fact, we just first ever Box Tops Christmas album is out now. Christmas, in all the years they never did a Christmas CD. So we just did one this year, and that's boxtops.com. And so there's a lot of stuff going on. Yeah, it's kind
And
of
Robbins Theater on the 6th of January.
Robbins Theater,
It'll be great.
American Pop, Box Tops, Buckingham's Association. I can't even count. You can't count on. I don't know how many hands you need for the number of hit records,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
it's
It's going to be a wonderful evening. Had a
it's
great
going to be it's going to be a fun night. I mean, it really is. And let's hope there's no snowstorm in January. You never know.
Yeah, the other part of that is people that live in this area. Again,
They're equipped for it.
Yeah, people are used to it. Yeah,
And everybody's coming in.
we don't want it to be. We don't want it to be that on that night. Yeah, if it is, it is. People are
Yeah, we're all coming in a day ahead anyway, just in case of weather. So we all come in the 5th.
You never know.
Yeah, so you never do know. But this has been great.
I've loved this with you.
And people are, they can contact me through my website if they want to.
ricklevy.com.
I'm on Facebook, Rick Levy. My pottery music posts on Facebook. Always happy to have more friends.
That's wonderful, Rick. I had a blast with you. I love.
Me too. I had a blast with you.
Your personality is wonderful. Can you stay with me off air for 1 minute?
Yeah, sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be back with some closing words right after this. Again, ricklevy.com, ricklevy.com. And as I say, I will be back with some closing words. Let me make